The president's health care program has created a political firestorm. Now, Washington says religious institutions must provide health insurance coverage for birth control.
Well, Pat, that set up a battle between religious freedom and government requirements. Jennifer Wishon has the story.
Inside churches across America, the health department's ruling is still reverberating. It's the department's interpretation of the president's health care law passed by Congress in 2010. The purpose is to give virtually all women insurance coverage for birth control. That means the health care law requires organizations affiliated with religious groups, like Catholic hospitals, to provide not only birth control pills for their employees, but also the controversial morning after pill and sterilization. In a statement, Health Secretary Kathleen Sebelius writes, scientists have abundant evidence that birth control has significant health benefits for women and their families. But many Catholic doctors disagree. Matt Smith, president of Catholic Advocate, says instead of helping women, the Obama administration is taking a knife to the Constitution.
This is a religious liberty issue, and it's something that is tearing at the just foundation of our country.
An organization with the main purpose of sharing its religious beliefs, one that mostly employs and serves people of that religion, like a church, is exempt. But other religious-run organizations, like, say, a Catholic university, must follow the rule. Catholic hospitals and nonprofits like Catholic Charities will also be forced to offer health insurance coverage for drugs and services that violate church teachings. Even if some employees don't use them, their premiums will be used to cover others who do.
Those institutions where women of all faiths, many faiths, work, need to have the same kind of coverage that all other American women have.
Even Jesus and his apostles, would not necessarily have qualified under this rule.
John Brehaney is director and ethicist for the Catholic Medical Association.
And this is really a serious assault on the rights of religious freedom of every American, because what they're saying is we're going to define who's in a religion and who's not.
The move led to headlines like this. The administration's decision disrupts central teachings of the Catholic Church about the dignity of human life, and it's uniting Catholics who don't often agree. Sister Carol Keehan supported the president's health care law and even received one of the pens he used to sign the bill. But she now says the mandate has, quote, jolted us. The decision has already become an issue in the presidential election, and members of Congress are taking notice.
As a decision that basically tells religiously based organizations that they must do something, in this case offer contraceptions and pay for it to their employees, that violates a basic tenet of their faith.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio is one of at least 3 members of Congress who've introduced legislation aimed at reversing the rule. Catholic Advocate has started a campaign to support legislative action. They've launched ProtectOurConscience.org and are calling on all Americans, not just Catholics, who feel their religious liberties have been trampled, to write their senators and representatives.
That will give them a mandate to pass veto-proof legislation that the president will be forced to sign into law to fix this attack on our religious liberties.
There's also a good chance the issue will be appealed to the Supreme Court. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Well, you have to hand it to the president. He's done 3 amazing things. He has alienated organized labor by slowing down that Keystone pipeline, which was going to give 20,000 jobs. He certainly alienated the Jews who were against him because of his attitude toward the Palestinians and the 1957 borders and all the rest. And now he has stuck his finger in the eyes of the Roman Catholics, all of them across the country. I wonder what other group he's going to alienate before the election. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories in the CBN newsroom. Lee?
Pat, the New York State Senate has passed a bill to allow churches to keep meeting in public schools. The bill reverses the city school district's ban on worship services inside its schools. The city will evict those churches in less than a week if the bill is not passed in the State House and signed by the governor. City Councilman Fernando Carrera has been an outspoken supporter of the churches.
we're expecting to pass. I mean, we have such an overwhelming support at the state level and in the city level. The only one who's not getting it is the mayor.
The city has told congregations this coming Sunday is the last day they can worship in New York City public schools. It's unclear, though, if Governor Andrew Cuomo would sign the bill if the legislature passes it. Pat, this is a big deal because there are so many churches in New York City, but not that many sanctuaries, not that many places of worship. So these churches, many of them evangelical churches, are forced to go into public buildings like public schools.
Hey, if you've lived in New York, as I have, you know that the land is at a premium. You just can't just find a place in the middle of the city and build a church. There isn't a place to get it. In order to build a church, you're probably going to tear an apartment house down in order to find the space. And so these are natural sanctuaries. They're empty on Sunday. Why not let these people use them? Well, we, under the American Center for Law and Justice, had a landmark case called Lamb's Chapel versus the Center Richard School District, won overwhelmingly in the Supreme Court, that if a school had a public forum and let any group come in, then they could not exclude religious groups. And Lamb's Chapel wanted to show a movie or whatever they wanted to do. Well, they won. But the Second Circuit has been pretty much anti-religious, and it looks like Mayor Bloomberg is sort of anti-religious too. I don't know where he's coming from, but he certainly doesn't seem to be in favor of Christianity. And whatever it is, these churches, especially of them in Puerto Rican neighborhoods and black neighborhoods and so forth, they don't have the money to go build churches, but they need some place to worship. And why not? These are empty buildings, and they pay rent for them. Lee?
Parts of Europe are in the middle of a deadly winter. They're digging out from a blanket of heavy snow, and it follows a week of bitter cold in which the number of dead continues to rise. Dale Hurd reports now from Paris.
Bosnian authorities have started using helicopters to evacuate the sick and deliver food to thousands of people who have been cut off by the heaviest snowfall this Balkan nation has ever experienced. This Bosnian says, "This is unbelievable. I can't remember snow like this in the past 30 years. More than 100 remote villages are cut off by snow over 6.5 feet high in the mountains. More than 3 feet of snow has fallen in Sarajevo. A mini ice age has barreled across Europe, but the London Independent wants you to know that it has nothing to do with what some say is global cooling. It's actually about global warming." The European Union considers global warming to be a scientific fact. So when there's a heat wave, there's lots of talk about climate change. But now that Europe's in the freezer, there's more like an embarrassed silence in the media, except for a few hardline true believers.
It's an article of faith because it is an article of faith already in law. It is an article of faith in regulation.
Anne-Elizabeth Moutet is a Paris-based columnist for the London Telegraph.
There's a great deal of sort of lemming effect among scientists, and there's also the fact that all the financing comes from people who have a vested interest in climate change.
In Ukraine, temperatures have fallen to 33 below zero. 135 have died. And in Rome, it was a rare sight as Pope Benedict appeared above a St. Peter's Square still covered with snow from the day before. Rome hasn't seen this much snowfall in 27 years. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Paris.
Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has made a deal with the Islamist group Hamas. The two groups have been rivals since 2007. Abbas's group is considered more moderate. Israel has tried negotiations with them in the past, but Hamas is a strongly Islamic organization and calls itself Israel's enemy. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the attempt to unite the two groups.
Hamas is an enemy of peace. It's an Iranian-backed terror organization committed to Israel's destruction. It refuses to abandon terrorism. Indeed, it continues to arm itself for even deadlier terrorism. You can't have it both ways. It's either a pact with Hamas or peace with Israel. It's one or the other. You can't have them both.
It's unclear if the West will support the new interim government headed by Mahmoud Abbas. Pat?
It's all a game of shells. You know, the Muslim Brotherhood established the Palestine Liberation Organization. and Yasser Arafat was the head. Well, Mahmoud Abbas was a disciple of Arafat and followed in his footsteps. Hamas is a creature of the Muslim Brotherhood. They both are spawned by the same parent. And it's a thing that we say, well, they're going to get together. Well, I mean, big deal. I mean, they've been, in a sense, together ideologically all along, although one says, well, I'm for reconciliation and moderation. The other says, I want to destroy Israel. Well, they both want to destroy Israel. They both want to take over the Holy Land. They both want to drive the Jews out. It's just a question of whether they say it overtly or they say it covertly. Lee?
Pat, most of us associate smoking with diseases like lung cancer, but a new study suggests smoking affects the mind as well. Researchers from University College in London found that middle-aged men who smoked showed a greater decline in mental function than those who had never smoked. Smoking actually seemed to speed up the cognitive aging process by about 10 years. Researchers say that the effects appear to be reversible. Men, for example, who quit smoking more than 10 years before the tests were performed did as well as men who had never smoked.
The U.S. has closed its embassy in Syria, and Britain recalled its ambassador on Monday. The moves are part of a new Western push to get Syrian President Bashar Assad to leave power and to end the deadly conflict in that country. Britain's foreign secretary says Syria's government is doomed, and President Obama says Assad's departure is only a matter of time. Lawmakers in Oklahoma are emphasizing the importance of prayer. About 75 state senators and representatives met Monday in a prayer ceremony at the state capitol. The event was organized by the Oklahoma Legislative Prayer Caucus, a bipartisan group modeled after the Congressional Prayer Caucus in Washington. The group says dozens of House and Senate members in Oklahoma have signed a pledge reaffirming "In God We Trust" as the national motto and emphasizing the importance of regular prayer. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.